Hello friends, Tanya here for Spellbinders, and today we're going to play with the Yana's Poppies collection and a few other of the new releases. Here is Yana's Poppy. This is a beautifully detailed die with a shadow element. There's a layered poppy background stencil set to coordinate with the poppy background Better Press plate, which is stunning. It creates this backdrop of detail. It creates a nice dark background. Next, we're going to look at the VersaFine Clair inks that Spellbinders carries. I love these. There are a bunch of different colors. There's a full rainbow. They don't carry all of the VersaFine Clair inks, but these are stunning. Let's see if I can name them all off. We have Glamorous, Charming Pink, Tulip Red, or Tulip, Cheerful Summertime, Verdant, Grassy Green, Warm Breeze, Paradise, Twilight, Purple something, Acorn, Pinecone, Morning Mist, and of course, Nocturne, just Nocturne. We're going to use every single one of these inks. We're going to start with Tulip. It's either Tulip or Tulip Red. I can't remember. But these are great colors. This is a lovely poppy red. I know it says Tulip, but it's that bright, almost into the orange reds. Then next I used Glamorous and then Charming Pink. And I've taken the poppy background Better Press plate and laid it sideways on my Better Press system. I'm using plain white cardstock, and I am, of course, going to make a full half sheet of cardstock pattern background. Now I flip this over, and I'm going to do the inks in the same order: Tulip, Glamorous, and Charming Pink, with the Tulip color meeting in the middle. Now this won't make a continuous pattern, but I fudge it. It's enough. You can see me turning the Better Press system on its side to see where the edge of the plate will hit the paper. Because it's suspended above the die or the plate, you can line that up. And while it's not perfect, it's still beautiful. Next, we're going to use, this is Cheerful, that's the yellow, and the orange is Summertime. Aren't those great names? I just love it. I love the VersaFine Clair inks because they are vibrant, they are pigment, and they preserve crisp detail. To blend these, I do use my cloth first to try to blend the two colors, and then I take a ink blending tool that is orange in color, picked up a little ink and dabbed that across. Here is the finished panel using the same system I used for the previous one. Now we're going to use Verdant, Grassy Green, and what is the name of that one? Is that Warm Breeze? I think it's Warm Breeze. It's a nice beginning into a turquoisey color. Again, going to use my ink blender here to blend the two colors. I used a green one between Verdant and Grassy Green, and then I'll use I think I used a blue one between the blue and the Grassy Green. And there is the completed panel. Oh, I love how these turn out. One pass, crisp and beautiful. These are very inky ink pads. These are pretty new. I just got them a few months ago. Now we're going to use, it's Purple Delight. That's the name of that one. And Twilight and Paradise, I think. This is Acorn. Now bear with me. This seems weird. Browns and grays. But I'm telling you, it looks very elegant. We've got Acorn, Pinecone, and Morning Mist. And they turn into a delightful background. It's one of my favorites here. Now I'm just doing a lot of playing here. I'm not going to end up making cards with each one of these backgrounds, but I want to encourage you to just play with your products. Don't worry about whether or not you're going to have a finished product. Look at that rainbow of backgrounds. That's without doing anything else with that press plate. You can create amazing patterns just with the press plate. and your BetterPress system. Here is the layering stencil set that comes with it. I'm going to do some inking with Sprout, Parsley, Clementine, and Poppy. These are Concord 9th dye inks. You can use whatever inks you want. They don't have to be dye. They don't have to be pigment. You can use whatever you want. I have my Altenew sticky mat here for the Altenew stamp wheel. I have an extra. They do work great for holding things down. I have a piece of clear acetate covering the portion of the paper or the cardstock that I don't want to get any ink on right now. And it's just clear, and it just lays over the cardstock before you lay the stencil down. And that helps protect it in a very easy way. This sticky mat, I've been using it for quite some time. And this first stencil, I did put the acetate down after I put the stencil down. Eventually, I get smart. I think here it is. And lay it down and just leave it in place because I'm just going to have to, I don't want to have to do that extra work. And you can tell that there are 3 stencils here for the petals. So you can get really detailed here, creating some shading on each of the petals and extra detail. I am taking the Clementine ink because I want a glow to come through these petals. So I'm going to start with this orange, and then I'll come back with the Poppy to add the red. And I think it really makes these more rich and detailed, and they really pop off of this neutral tone background. One more stencil for the petals. Some of these petals are really fine, and it's really easy to line these up. Again with the orange and then the red. You could use a smaller blender brush and cover less of the openings, leaving some white space in the petals to create kind of a glowy effect, or a more, more of a white look. Give it a little more separation, more delicate. I wanted the big bold color on this. Now we're going to go on to I think there are 2 stencils that do the leaves and one that does the centers, I believe. I'm going to use the lighter green here. It's Sprout, to lay some color down on this. And I'm just using the same green blending brush for both of the greens here. I was looking at one spot on the stencil that I wasn't sure if that was an extra piece or if that was covering something specifically. And it was covering a stem that overlaps that leaf. So don't get rid of that little piece. We're going to move on to the next stencil, and this is the stems of the poppies. Going to go in with my darker green and cover those. I did not need to use such big blender brushes in retrospect. However, they work. Use whatever you got. And this will fill in the centers of all of the flowers. Now, poppies really do have green centers. You'll see a lot of people make black ones. There are black stamens in the middle of the poppies, but the actual center of the poppies is green. But you know what? This is a creative process. You can make them whatever color you want. Now, I did repeat that whole process on the other half of this piece of cardstock, and this was probably one of the worst jobs of lining up the BetterPress plates through the BetterPress system that I did. And you can see that it still looks pretty darn good. We're going to use some Snow and Ice Pearl Luster gilding polish here, and I did get a little bit of ink, or some of the ink did transfer onto that applicator, but I'm totally not worried about it. I wanted a little bit of extra sparkle. I did not want extra dimension, not really. This is similar to glacier paste in the thickness that it lays down when you use the applicator like this. You could use any of the pastes and use a a palette knife. But this stuff dries so fast. There was just a few seconds between when I pulled the first stencil off and put the second one down. I'm only doing this over the petals, and I'm telling you, in real life, the shimmer on these, oh, it is amazing. And because a little bit extra of the product will be around the edges of the stenciled items. You have a little extra shimmer, like a frosting edge on your petals. Turned out amazing. Next, we're going to use this gorgeous detailed die called Yana's Poppy. I don't know why that's a tongue twister for me, but it is. And we're going to use the treasured cardstock in the rose gold. I've got the rose gold. I think this is the brushed cardstock. Brushed or mirror. Maybe it's the mirror. And you can see that I'm trying to run it through my Scout, but it does not get all of the detail cut out. So I do take it to my bigger machine. Same with these pieces. It wasn't just the specialty cardstock. The Scout just does not have enough pressure to, well, I did not try it with the shim. Maybe I'll try it with the shim, but without the shim, it does not have enough pressure. So I just took it to my big machine. I ran it through. Of course, the shadow die didn't have any problems. You saw that I put a bunch of washi tape on the backs of those detailed dies to hold all of those inlaid pieces in place. And then I'm going to use my smaller blender brushes and add color to the white pieces. I don't have to worry about getting it on the outline because that's going to be covered with the mirror cardstock. I chose to use a brown color to color that seed pod. I think I used wheat Concord 9th ink, and I'm coming back with the orange and the red to color the poppy again. Just laying my color down, not being real particular. You can see that I'm not inking it up completely even, and that's okay. You want a little color variation on your poppies, at least I do. To add that extra depth and dimension. Just laying that color down, sticking with the orange, and I think I do use different brushes, but since I was working with the orange, I decided to go ahead and complete that. And then I will grab the red, which is poppy, and I'm going to try to be kind of selective with the inking here. I'm trying to follow the lines of the petals so that I'm mostly putting the color at the base of each petal. And that was actually surprisingly easy. To blend the colors together, I'm going back over each of these images with the orange or the clementine ink. I love this orange. It's a nice medium orange color, and it's pretty true orange. It doesn't lean more yellow or more red. Now we're going to take the fossilized amber Distress Spritz. This is colored mica, but not the water. The liquid is clear. And as you can see, I did use my sticky mat to help me keep everything in place while I was blending these die cut images. And the best way to remove these is to pick it up like I did with the first one and fold the sticky mat back. This one, the tape was sticking to the sticky mat and starting to pull the inlaid pieces out. So I had to use my palette knife. There's more than one way to get it done. Here we have the detailed piece cut out of the mirror rose gold. I'm using my fine tip reverse tweezers here to help me hold this detailed item. And I'm going to add a little bit of dots of glue all over the back of this. You can adhere this in a couple of ways. You can have die cut this with some full sheet sticker sheets so you could peel the release paper off. I am not a fan of that. It turns into a mess for me. Full sheet sticker sheets and I do not get along very well. Or you can put the glue down on another surface and tap your die cut into it. I've done that a couple times, but I find that I work just fine with little dots of glue out of my fine tip glue bottles here. And those are sold by Spellbinders also. They come in a pack of 2 for like $5 or $6. And I find this bottle very easy to squeeze, and it has that very fine detail tip. Just so easy. And it hasn't gotten clogged on me yet. I just keep a needle in it just like I do my Barely Art glue bottles. And it's Barely Art precision glue that I put in this. Now we're going to adhere this to our vellum backer. And that vellum backer just adds that subtle background. It helps it pop a little more, and it keeps all of your pieces together so you don't have to worry quite as much about your inlays staying in place. Just going to carefully place this on, and I can see that I stretched my leaves out a little bit, so I reorient them onto the background. Next, I'm going to take a 5x7 matting basics die from the set B. If you love to do 5x7 cards, these matting layers are wonderful dies. We're also going to use the brand new Perfect Touch backgrounds dies here. This came out with the Cheers collection, which, oh my God, that is so cute. That is another one that I can't wait to dig my claws into. I can't wait to dig into. There we go. I'm not going to tear it apart. I'm just going to have some fun. The Poppies, Yana's Poppy, and some of the Cheers collection came out in the Weekender virtual event kit, and then they expanded on those. So if you were sad that you missed the virtual event, you can still get your hands on all these things. We are going to cut 2 layers out, the larger layer with the vellum and the smaller layer with some white cardstock, and it has a beautiful detail along the edges. Not quite crosshatch. It's like little tiny V's cut into them, rounded V's. It's very pretty. I really like this. I've layered these together. I'm adding some extra cardstock between the layers to add a little extra depth, make this a little more floaty. I love that on our cards, and I kind of like it when the vellum curls up a little bit. To get our sentiment, we're going to go back to the Let's Celebrate collection. If you don't have this collection, oh my gosh, the peonies background is amazing, just as gorgeous as the the poppy background. I really enjoy these press plates. We're going to take this press plate from the Let's Celebrate Sentiments. It says Happy Birthday Wishes, and it has a coordinating die. So I'm actually going to glimmer foil this press plate with some polished brass foil on a piece of black cardstock, and you could use gloss black. That would be gorgeous too. I just happen to have some black cardstock that takes foil very well. I wish I could point you to where I got it, but I'm pretty sure I got it off of Amazon as a cheap black cardstock when I was having troubles finding black cardstock anywhere else, and I don't know if it's still available, but I found out that it foils beautifully. Check your stash. There are lots of cardstocks out there, and every machine seems to have just a little bit different pressure when it comes to foiling. Foiling is definitely something that I had to practice at and play with my tools and my supplies to see what worked best. But once you have it mastered, boy, howdy, I love glimmering. It is such a beautiful end product. And the Better Press, the beauty of that is you get stunning results with no learning curve. It's first time and it's gorgeous. And I do love that the Better Press plates will foil beautifully also. Yeah, they really, Spellbinders just keeps up in the game. I'm telling you, love it. And we are going to add all of these different elements using some extra cardstock behind the elements to add extra dimension and depth. I did cut a couple extra black cardstock pieces of the sentiment and layered those behind it. Again, extra dimension and depth. We're going to use our guillotine trimmer here to trim off this extra piece. Now, when I take a half sheet of cardstock to make a 5x7 background, I often have scraps, and those scraps come in pretty handy. I'm going to trim this down just a little bit where the better pressing isn't the best because I have more length here than I need. I'm going to put this on the inside of the card. I only need 7 inches of it, so I trimmed off a little bit, and then we'll just adhere that to the inside of the card. You saw me use that trick to get this skinny piece lined up under the blade correctly. I'm just using another piece of cardstock to push that piece of cardstock to the edge, and that keeps it nice and straight and gives me a way to control it. I had to go back and true up that edge to make it nice and clean and even. We'll lay this down, and I have maybe a scant 1/4 inch of white showing on the other side. I just like having that little bit of white there. It just is easier to line up with a gap between the edge of the inside of the card and the edge of your pattern strip here. I think that turned out gorgeous. Now we're going to do a little more experimentation. We're going to use some Distress Spritz sprays here in Worn Lipstick and Picked Raspberry. These are 2 of the pinks in the Distress Spritz line. And each of these stencils I'm going to line up. I have that piece of acetate covering the half that I'm not working on currently, so I don't have to worry about overspray on this. And then I am spritzing each of these stencils with the Distress Spritz. There is a lot of spray left on these stencils. Don't worry, we're going to use that too. And on the 3rd flower stencil, because we're only doing the flowers or the flower petals on this, we're not doing the leaves or anything, I am going to use both of the Distress Spritz. You do have to shake these good to keep the mica suspended in the liquid. And I do lay them down on their side so it's a little easier to get them to recombine. Now I have all of these very spritzied, very wet stencils. I'm going to take 2 or 3 pieces of watercolor cardstock and pick up that extra Distress Spritz. Now, you'd think you'd pick up all of it with the watercolor paper because it's designed to pick up water or to absorb the water. But there's still a ton left on each of these stencils when I'm done trying to sop it up with this 1 piece of watercolor cardstock. I'm going to do 1 more here. Now remember, we're just playing with all of this stuff. We're not necessarily looking to make a finished product, but I love to experiment. Now instead of just laying the watercolor paper on the stencils, I'm picking up the stencils and just dabbing. This is a great way to do ink smushing and having some control. I'm truly just playing here. And I have this fun watercolor background that I can play with later. I did go ahead and spritz the other side. And now we're going to create a slimline border. This is one of the most beautiful border dies that Spellbinders has ever come out with. I really encourage you, if you have it in your stash, pull it out and play with it. If you don't have it in your stash, you might want to look at getting it. It does create long enough, it has borders long enough to do a full slimline cardstock, which is 8.5 inches, which is fantastic. You can see that I created kind of an inlay design with one of those. It cuts the negative parts out. And now I'm deciding what cardstock of the treasured cardstock silver that I want to use. I decide to use the mirror cardstock. So I'm going to take a strip and cut it at about 1.5 inches. And lay my border die. Oh, I'm trying to figure out how wide that is. I think I cut it down to 5 inches. And we will lay that behind this piece of cardstock. But first, I want to add a little depth. I want there to be a little space between the mirror cardstock and the die cut portion here. So I'm taking some scrap cardstock and I'm laying it down on this background. I fully intended to put extra cardstock behind this regardless, but again, I want to add a little depth here, a little space between the inlay, or sorry, the fallout die here and the silver cardstock. Just taking scraps. These are, I have tons of white scraps in my scrap pile because mainly from me printing the product packaging for the Spellbinder stuff, because I always get it in just little baggies with a sticky label on it, because being on the design team, you get it before sometimes that production is done. Now that I have laid the silver cardstock behind there, I'm going to make this all even on the back. So I'll add a second layer of scrap cardstock behind this. And you can see it's not a fancy process at all. I'm just laying it on the the paper I want to cover, and using my little snips here to trim off the extra. Now that I have all of those layers applied, we're going to take this over to the guillotine trimmer and trim off the excess of the mirror cardstock. That is the only thing I'm trimming off there because everything else was cut to size. And look at that, it just glows. We're also going to use the Smile from Stitched Petal Bloom and some crochet thread in a lovely pink that matches the tones of the cardstock background that we're going to use. I have doubled this thread over, and I made a knot in the end, and I came up from the bottom, went back down, and when I went back down, I went between the two threads that have the knot in the end, and I'm trimming off any of the extra thread off the end of the knot, so this will tuck behind the word nicely. Now I'm just going to do a pretty basic straight stitch here all around this entire word. I'm going to show you most of the letter S in this. I did zoom in a little bit, and I did speed this up. My entire video is at double speed here. So if you need to slow this down, go to that gearbox on the bottom there of your YouTube page and click on that, and you can reduce or increase the speed. I watch all of my videos at double speed. I know, strange. I can understand what people are saying. I can follow what they're doing. Probably the ADHD brain in me. But I understand that everyone is a little different. My family has to ask me to slow down any videos that we're watching together. And if you're watching something in detail that you need to see a little slower, know that you can slow it down up to, I think it's down to 0.25%. So you can slow it way down. If you do that though, you're probably going to want to turn the sound down because it will sound so strange. I've completed the letter S, and I'm not going to make you watch me do the entire word. Just know that you're going to go straight stitching this across. The hardest part of this was just keeping the thread from being tangled in the rest of the words as we're going through. There it is, completed. There is a little tittle for the eye, and I thought about doing a French knot in that, but I decided not to. You'll see what I do in the end. I'm applying some glue to the back of the thread only, because that's all that's going to stay attached. I used some matte silver cardstock from the Treasured Cardstock collection to die cut the shadow element, and then we're going to add that tittle here. Add a little glue to that circle spot for the tittle. You'll see there's a hole in the center of that. I pulled out the Peach Blush Color Essentials Gems. These are one of the new colors, and you can see that I really like this color. And I'm going to try a few different sizes here. Trying to find the size that I like best. And I think I ultimately go with the smallest size. There are 4 different sizes of gems in these packs, and that makes it super versatile. And the little tiny ones are the ones that there are the most of. We're going to add some extra glue to the back of this and layer 2 layers, I think, 1 or 2 more layers on the back of this for a little extra height and stability. Yep, 2 layers. I like to do this a lot. My cards are very sturdy and they have a little heft. We're also going to use the All Seasons Summer press plate here. I'm going to line this up on my machine. I'm going to do this with a piece of 5x7 watercolor cardstock. I happened to find a really good deal on watercolor cardstock somewhere and bought this pack of pre-cut 5x7 pieces. It was very inexpensive. If I remember, I'll link it. It was on Amazon. And it actually watercolors pretty well. It's very similar to Canson XL, only there seems to be more texture on this cardstock, and it is 140 pound. You can use the Spellbinders cardstock. You don't need to go buy extra cardstock. There are watercolor cardstock. There's lots of them out there. One of the things I love about this press plate is that there is a coordinating die that die cuts all of the sentiments at once. Not only are you getting all of these sentiments lined up on one plate, you're also getting all of the die cuts on one plate also. So here I've done it in, I think I did it in Charming Pink and in Morning Mist. 2 different colors, and I'm auditioning these to see which one I like better. And I think that the Morning Mist version stands out the best on this background. I'm trying to figure out how I want to line this up. I did die cut a couple extra layers of cardstock to put behind our sentiment, which reads, "These are the days." I just thought this would be a great general card. You could use it for just about any occasion, except for like a get well or encouragement card, because it would seem a little condescending if you said, "Smile, these are the days," if someone's going through a rough time. But pretty much any other occasion this would work for. I'm just going to center this up on our 5x7 card base. I think it's beautiful just like that, but I feel like it needed a sentiment. So we'll line the smile up above the fallout die area, and we'll line the second part underneath it. Again, just eyeballing it. You can use your T-square or whatever your favorite way to line things up. I have my heavyweight block to keep those pressed down to adhere. And then I wanted to add just a little pop of gems in this die cut area. I start out by adding the tiniest gems to the circular areas, the centers of the circular areas. And that's really easy to do. I like using my pokey tool for doing this. I've seen some people use the wax tip end. I always end up getting wax on my gem if I do it that way. And the other end of my pickup stick isn't quite sharp enough to get underneath the gems. After I put them in the centers of the circular items or circular portions, I decided I wanted even more gems. So I took the 2 sizes up gem, because I used the smallest, which I believe is a 3mm, and then I went to the 5mm and added those in the alternating spots, and I think that turned out fantastic. I did use another strip of the extra cardstock on the inside of that card also. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed, now's the time to do that. Here you're hearing me say all the same things as usual. Check that description box below for all of the products that I used today. And there is a visual list link with all of the links and a brief group of links for the products that I used today below this. Don't forget to leave me a comment below. I love to hear from you. And until next time, here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.